So now we've got our doors cut, we're going to have to do the next step, extending them. So we're done. Right, here we have the front door, and of course the only door that we're going to need. So the easiest way of going about this would actually to have another front door, but as we don't have that, well, we can't use one, we're going to be, of course, extending it with parts from the rear door. Now this is going to be a bit more tricky, because instead of removing material, we're going to have to add more. Now, in this case, with this sort of door, you've got a structure inside the actual skin. So we can't just chop it right down the centre. Now we've also got another couple of little other bits. So in this bit where the trim would usually cover, it changes taper all the way through. So right here it's very shallow, and then it gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and then shallows out again right at the top. So we're going to have to be mindful of that too. And the next thing we're going to have to worry about is where the mirror used to bolt to. Now we could take that off and change that, which we may have to by maybe moving some mirrors forward onto the quarter panels. But for now, we're just going to leave that in place. It'll be easier to cut, and it'll just make the job a little bit more easier, because we're thinking mainly about the actual size of the door before we think of the functionality of the door. So I'm going to grab a grinder and we're going to get right into it. And of course, just like the last door, we're going to have to cut it up. So this time we only have to make one cut at the front here, but to find out where we can put, well, splice in or stitch in the extender, we're going to have to find out where it matches to. Now, as I said, the swage up the top here, it changes depth, or the bend up the top changes depth. So we've had to take some vernier calipers and measure where it matches our piece we took out of our rear door. So now we know that, and we know where this black line is. There's a big piece of solid structure here. As you can see, when I push on it, it's not really flexing. Push over here, it flexes a little bit more. So of course, we've just moved over a bit. And then we've measured to where the swage line or the bend line matches. So this is where we're going to cut. Now once again, we're going to grab a straight edge and a tape measure, measure out to where it needs to be, grab your straight edge and draw a line, much like so. And just remember to make sure that there's nothing under where you're cutting. So say hidden structures or substructures, especially if you just want to cut the door open. Now a more modern door would have something like a bar in the middle of it for side protection. These doors don't. Now we're going to have to add something like that into the door, just in case it does get hit, and it gets hit hard. That, well, people don't get hurt while they're using the vehicle. Now this can be done multiple ways, but I think we should do it the way, say, Toyota does it back in the 90s, which is, seriously, take a bar from one side of the door to the other. That's how we're going to do it. But we also have to think about room for the window, room for the regulators. So that's why we're just going to be chopping, cutting and extending today. We're going to worry about anything else until that part's done. Then we'll move on to the other side of the car and keep going. Now we have the doors split and measured out, well, separated 240 millimeters apart. We're just going to simply make some straps or some structure to put these two together. Now, on the last door, I didn't bother with that. I just welded the bottoms together, welded the tops together, and welded the skin together. Why? Well, in the back one, we're going to have to chop that all out to make window regulator things and whatnot. This door we're going to have to do the same, but because we're extending it, we have to go from somewhere. We can't just weld a bit to a bit to a bit. Then it will start doing this. And that won't be due to heat, it'll just be due to it not being in place. So we're going to weld these together, a couple of straps as I said, and then once that's all squared away, we'll maybe put a couple of straps on the back of these doors, on the back here, and we'll put it on the car to test fit it, just in case it's too small or too long. Now we've got our door cut and on the car with a few temporary structures in behind the door, we can now see how big the door actually needs to be. Now we've, of course, got the gap to fill, and we can fill this gap, of course, with the piece left behind from the rear doors, but there's a slight problem. Of course, that is for a rear door and not a front door. So a few of the curves and a few other little bits don't match. But that's easy. We're going to start at the bottom and work our way to the top again. Now this one will be a little bit more involved, as we're going to have to figure out a way to keep the skin in the middle, or we're just going to have to dissect the skin. Now we might just dissect the skin, weld it in places that's easy to grind and easy to hide. So with most cars, you may be able to get away with, chopping it down the swage here. But with this vehicle, that's a little harder to do. As when it gets to the swage, it gets the tiniest little bit thinner. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to cut just above this swage line here, and we're going to take this whole piece here and we're going to match it here. Same with the bottom. So now we've cut this bottom bit off the skin, we'll match this piece, and then we'll match them together and we'll work our way to the top. Now this is, of course, a little bit more involved than shrinking a door, because once again, with shrinking a door, it's a little easier because there's less welding, less grinding, less cutting, just generally less fabrication. So this, of course, is probably the most, little bit more involved than the pillar. The pillar is just a bit harder because you're actually playing with structure. This, you're not playing with too much structure, you're just playing with aesthetics, really. Now we've got our door cut open, and we've had it on the car. We've seen how big the gap is and what we need to do to of course, remedy that. Now we're going to use half of the old inside structure, and we're going to make the rest. And why use half? Well, the job's already halfway done. And all we have to do is trim this bit off and then make a new profile of that, or a new piece of that. To do that, we'll make a profile. So that's just as easy as grabbing the old piece of door, plonking it on the piece of paper and tracing the outside line. Or the inside, it doesn't really matter. Now there is a few ways of doing this. There's special tools which of course grab the outside and do funny things like that and whatever. But this is the simplest, cheapest, easiest way to do it. Is put it on a piece of paper and draw it. You could even put it on a piece of card and cut the card out as well. But for now we're just going to use this method. Now, we've got our underskin pretty much sorted out, and now we've got to do the actual skin. Now, what we've done is taken the top of the skin off, and then left us just with the bottom swage and the bottom line, well, the bottom edge. Now, this is probably the easiest way to do it, due to the way the door was built on the rear and the way the door was built on the front. It's a little bit different. Now, the easiest way I've figured out to do this is of course, section it into 3 sections. So you've got your top, your middle, or your bottom, your middle, and your top. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to weld this in a bit more, and then we're going to start on the middle piece, and then we'll move to the top. Here, we've got the front door put on the car. I'm not just saying it's put on the car, it's actually on the car. It opens and it closes without fault. So, all we've got to do is finish welding it and then, well, put a new handle on it and a couple other little things. And after that, we'll weld this door to the car. As you can see, it's not, and make some chassis strengthening for when we remove the pillar. Now, what are we going to do after that? Well, we'll be moving to the other side, and that will be the next video. But after that, we're going to take a look at the front end. And if you've never seen the front end of this car, I wouldn't blame you. But for those of you who have and know what this car is, you'll know that the front end could use some work. And we're going to be doing that. We're going to start with a full-on custom bumper, full custom headlights, the whole thing. Then you look at that and you go, well, you might as well change the roof while you're there. Which is the thing after that. We'll change the roof. And then we'll give the back some love. Now, as I said earlier in the first episode, there's something a little special hiding under there. So we're going to be chassis strengthening for that and for this. So keep your eyes peeled, keep watching, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.